Hello, welcome to art class with Mrs. Cabrera. Today we are going to draw possibly one of the most famous works of art ever. It is the Mona Lisa. The Mona Lisa is a portrait, which means it's a picture or a painting of a person, and it's probably the most important or famous portrait in the history of art. The Mona Lisa was made in 1503 by creative genius artist Leonardo da Vinci. We are going to draw this step by step, so make sure you have something to draw with and some paper. I'm going to use some chalk today. There will be a little bit of erasing, so maybe a pencil is a good choice. Now, for our portrait, we need to start with a frame. And the frame is going to be tall, and then we don't want it to be very wide. So I'm going to start up at the top of my paper and draw a horizontal line, side to side. It might look a little slanted on the chalkboard, but it's going to be straight. Then two vertical lines, and you want those to be longer. Mine isn't perfectly straight, that's okay. There we go. So it is tall and kind of narrow. So you could always add a more detailed frame around the outside, but we're going to focus on the inside now. So I'm going to go to the top middle, about right here, leaving a little bit of space, and I'm going to start with the top of her head and the sides of her face. So I used a rainbow line and then two straight lines for the side of her face. Her chin is going to kind of come to a point, but as you can see, just like mine, it's a little rounded. And that's a basic head shape. Now we're going to get the basic neck and shoulders and arms before going on to those smaller details. So her neck actually comes out from below her chin. Looks good enough. And we don't actually see that second line. It's kind of covered by her hair. But I'm going to draw it because it's going to help me with this next step. It's going to start a little bit higher. We want the head to be wider than the neck. Now her shoulders are going to be at slopes kind of like this, and then her arms come down. So I'm going to slope out, and then the lines come down for her arms. And we'll finish off this area down here. She's got her arms kind of resting. Those of you in my art classes know that I use the Mona Lisa as a teaching tool. I might say, show me Mona Lisa. That means our voice is quiet. Maybe we're smiling. Our hands are calm and quiet. Our ears are listening, and we're looking at the teacher or whoever is speaking, maybe a classmate. So we're going to draw all those pieces today. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to finish out the bottom part of the portrait. We're getting to see her about half of her body, kind of like from her waist up. So her hands can be really tricky. So if you need to make it simple, that's okay too. What I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the hand that's on top first. And this is going to be this arm here. So this arm's going to kind of curve in, following that same line, and then a second line. And you'll notice that here's about where her elbow is. As I get closer to her wrist, it gets smaller, just a little bit. Hands, this part of her hand, I'm going to use a trapezoid to draw it. So I'll show you how. I'm going to draw a short line. It's going to get a little bit bigger. So two kind of angled lines and then one longer one. And that's a good trick for drawing a basic hand shape. And then her hands are kind of like this. So I'm going to draw kind of oval shapes coming off of there. And I need to fit 4 for her 4 fingers. 2, 3, 4. And I see just a little bit of her thumb, so I add a little bit of that there. Her other arm is underneath it. So from this line, I'm going to go under, and again, another line for her arm. And this one, we're actually she's got her hand curved like this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to follow this line, and I'm going to draw a diagonal line that curves at the end. And I'm going to actually repeat that same line about 4 or 5 times. Actually 5. So 1, 2, it's kind of like a backward J or like a candy cane. 3, 4, 5. So it looks like her hand is kind of curved like that, or her fingers are. And then what I can do is just finish off maybe that dress, or maybe I see some lines there, just so it doesn't just end. All right, now we're gonna add the details for her clothing and then go on to her hair and face. So the neckline of her dress is about right here. So I'm gonna start here and just draw a slightly curved line. And then I'm gonna curve it back to her neck. I could make all kinds of different shirts. If I was drawing in my jean jacket, it might be more of a V. So a curved line that goes up towards the neck. And same on this side. Now it looks like she's wearing that dress. She is kind of wearing like a robe of sorts. So maybe I see that robe here, and maybe the robe is coming around that way. And maybe I see like some sleeves. And kind of same thing on this side, almost looks like seeing a little bit of that robe. So maybe there's just some lines there that kind of show the fabric. And I'm gonna erase this little trapezoid line from that hand earlier so it's connected to the wrist. And just some curved lines to add some detail. If I wanna come in later and kind of add some details to her dress, I could definitely do that. All right, time for the hair and the face. So we're gonna add the hairline, which shows where her face ends and her hair starts. So that line's gonna kind of mirror the very first line we made, slightly curved, maybe a little bit less of a curve. And her hair is parted down the middle, so I find the middle and I'm gonna make it a curved line that goes back. So now we can see where her hair is parted. Over on this side, her hair comes behind her shoulder. Now I don't wanna draw it totally right next to the face. The hair sits off of our head a little bit. So hers is slightly curled, so it's just a soft wavy line coming down the side. Now over on this side, some of it goes behind of her shoulder and some of it actually comes in front of her shoulder and hides a little bit of this information. So I'm gonna actually start on the face this time, a little bit in from the edge, about right there. And I'm gonna add that wavy line. It actually kind of runs into that line I made earlier for the neck. So I could always erase that since maybe her neck goes a little bit deeper, or I just don't see the whole thing. Maybe it's getting covered by her hair. And then I'm also gonna make the other side of her hair. See the way I came out and then go down? We want volume in that hair. And maybe this side of it goes behind. Now that side of the face, I can kind of erase that. If I don't erase it, that's okay too. I'm gonna start to add some extra contour lines that show the texture of her hair. Maybe some of those should start up here. Same thing on this side. So now it really looks like her hair has volume. We can imagine what that texture is or the way it feels. And I'm gonna add just a few lines showing, you know, her hair up on her head is kind of straighter before it gets curly and goes down. Cool, this is looking really great so far. I can totally recognize Mona Lisa. Remember to pause if you need to, if you need a little bit of extra time, okay? We're gonna do the face, and we're gonna move on to the middle ground and the background, and then we get to color it. So for her face, a good rule is that our eyes are about halfway down our head, so they're in the middle. So about right here is where I'm gonna add her eyes. I'm gonna add 2 curved lines for the eyelids and then circles for like our iris or our pupil in there. So slightly curved, something kind of like that. If you like to draw your eyes a different way, that's awesome and you should do that. I'm just gonna show you one way to do it. Now, she is not facing us straight on. She's kind of turned and then looking at us. So her iris is a little bit to the side. So I'm gonna draw 2 circles. It's hard to get those fine details with my chalk. And this one's looking a little big, so I'm gonna try again. There we go. And if you're using something dark, you're definitely gonna wanna color that in. Awesome. Okay, so now The Mona Lisa needs some eyebrows, a nose, and her mysterious smile. I like to do the Mona Lisa's eyebrows and nose kind of connected, and I'll show you how. I make another curved line, and then I'm going to go down the middle of her face, kind of curving out, and then the bottom of her nose. I think noses are better when they are simple. They can be a really tough part of the face to draw. And her other eyebrow. Okay, now it's time for that famous Mona Lisa smile. So I'm going to add a slight smile. She's not grinning big ear to ear, but she's not super serious either. So a slight smile, and then we can add our lips. Sometimes I teach this by drawing a river, and then you draw a boat underneath. So a little bit more of a curve on that line, and then 2 bumps. Awesome. All right, it's time for the middle ground and foreground. Now, this portrait was done in front of a landscape, which is a painting or a picture of a place. And it's almost like it's out the window, so we see a little bit of a ledge down here. So towards the bottom, kind of by her elbows, I'm going to draw a horizontal line, and I have to jump over my Mona Lisa and finish that line over here. And I'm actually going to do that 2 times because we see the top ledge of the windowsill. So this would maybe be a darker area when you color that in, and there might be more light and color outside in the background. Now on this side, the middle ground, so let's talk about that. The foreground, the Mona Lisa is the closest to the artist, or closest thing in the picture. The middle ground is going to be a little bit farther back, and the background is way far away, not close by. In this middle ground, there's actually like a road, and on this side there's a bridge. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw the lines that kind of define the middle ground. And those are all happening about right here. And I'm just going to use kind of an irregular zigzag for those. And now it's time for that winding road. It's going to start small up at that zigzag and wind down here and maybe come behind the figure. I'm going to draw a second one, and watch how I get those lines closer together the farther away we get. So it's harder to see the details of the road. Now it's time for the bridge on the other side. A diagonal line, and then 1 more of those. And on the second line, you're going to draw just some simple rainbow or arches to show that old bridge. Kind of like that. And then maybe we see that river that the bridge is going over. Again, getting smaller as you move up the page as it gets farther away. We are almost finished with our Mona Lisa. Now it's time for the background, and there's a really rocky landscape, and it's kind of at her eye level. So I'm going to do another irregular zigzag line, but I don't want to draw on top of the Mona Lisa. She's in the front. On this side, it's really tall, and then gets a little bit shorter. All right. I know there's more details I could add, like her hand is resting on a book. Maybe I want to go in, pay more attention to the details on her clothing, but honestly, we're ready for color. So I'm going to show you that painting one more time, and you can kind of think about the colors that you want to add. Leonardo da Vinci used cool colors in the very background, so greens and blues to make it look really far away. In the middle ground, there's some oranges, yellows, and reds, but the most vibrant colors are going to be on the foreground, on the Mona Lisa. If you want to change her skin color or the clothes that she's wearing, that would be awesome to see. What would Mona Lisa look like in 2020? What would you look like if you were the Mona Lisa? Or one viewer even shared making a Ratha-Lisa, drawing my dog and Mona Lisa combined. How fun would that be to see? You can use crayons, colored pencils, markers, or combine some of those things to color it in. You'll also see the wooden frame around here. If you want to add a frame to your artwork, that would be fun to see. I hope you guys had a really good time drawing the Mona Lisa. If you don't like your first try, try again. To tell you the truth, this is my second try. I didn't like the first video. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys next week.